Hey everyone, welcome back to the New Generation Construction YouTube. On today's episode, I'm going to pull out this door behind me and install a brand new door. Come along with me throughout the process and I'll show you at home how it's done. The very first thing that I like to do on a door is take it off the hinges and get it out of our way, because when you are replacing a door, it is constantly in and out of the house. So having it immediately off the hinges helps give you space to work and not have anything in your way. The next thing that I do after taking the door out of the opening is I'll take the 1x4 trim off the exterior or the interior, but mainly it just depends on whichever one's easier. On this case, however, we are going to leave the interior trim because it is inset into the plaster. This house is about 80 years old, so we're going to cut the nails along the back of the trim in this little corner right here, which will allow us to remove the jamb and keep the trim, and that will help the painter not have to patch drywall, help us not have to deal with taking this one off. It's a little bit annoying that we have to cut nails, but not too big of a deal. So our first thing we're going to do after the door's out is take this trim off right there. On the outside, that will expose the jamb and we can cut all the nails behind the jamb. One thing to consider when taking off this trim is if you're going to be saving it or getting rid of it. In our case, we're getting rid of it, so we don't have to be extremely gentle. I don't want to damage the siding because that stays, but I don't care about the jamb and I don't care about the trim because we're replacing all of that. If you are replacing it and you decide to keep your trim, you may want to be a little bit more cautious than what I'm doing right now. Easy. Easy, buddy? Easy. I'm now going to reach in there with my Sawzall and cut the framing nails that are inside the jamb, cut anything, and I'm going to not allow my Sawzall blade to puncture the other side. So David's gonna start prepping on getting rid of the caulking on that trim so that he can fit the multi-tool in there to cut the finish nails, and I am going to cut all of the nails around the inside of the jamb to hopefully free it up to where we can pop it out through the outside. A simple trick that you can do to help you get a door jamb out of the opening without damaging the inside trim is we are going to do a cut right here in the middle, which will allow us to pry open on the bottom. You can't pry on the top because it's lapped above the top part of the jamb, and you can't pull down on the top part of the jamb because it's lapped here as well. So it doesn't allow you to pry, it doesn't allow you to pry down. So doing a cut in the middle allows you to pry from the middle out, which helps with removal of this. And that only works because our jamb is toast and we have a new jamb. So if you're keeping the jamb, don't do that. Just like that. Like that. I'm going to clean up all the caulking around the trim to just help the painter and make our job a little bit nicer. Take a chisel and just run it along just like so. We just need to measure the door, make sure it fits. Probably have blocking.
I got 37.5 by 6'8".
Now that the opening is cleaned out and we have the old door out, I'm going to check the opening real quick. I got 38.5, David. You said it's 37.5?
Yeah, 37.5.
Okay. And then what about going up?
I
got 82 3/4. So he said 37.5.
I got 82.
82? Okay, so we got 3/4 of play on the top. That's fine. And then on the side, we have a whole inch, so we can do a 1/2 inch space, 1/2 inch space. We got everything swept up, ready to go. I'm gonna finish taking off the last bit of caulking that's on around the siding and get everything ready for the door to go in, to make it as easy and as simple as possible. To once we start installing it, we don't have to stop and do something else that gets in our way. Here's a huge tip when it comes to installing a door. I repeat, do not forget to take out the nails or the screws around the perimeter of the jamb. From the factory, they like to put screws on and nails. There's none up here, so we're good. But for example, right here, sometimes they don't stick out. In this case, this is actually pretty nice because it probably won't fall into place with it sticking out. But sometimes they only have a screw, and if you forget that screw after you install the door, it is a pain to try and get it out or cut it without damaging the door. So always check for the screws and nails around the jamb to make sure that when they come from the factory that you have taken all of them out and it is ready for installation. It will save you a headache, because if you forget, it is going to cause a huge problem once the door is already installed. Before we put the door in, the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to put our silicone on the bottom, and this prevents water from getting in under the threshold and allows it to have a watertight and airtight seam across the bottom. I know in this case we have a covered porch, so it's not crucial, but it is crucial for ants, bugs, any water if anything does happen, if they ever decide to remodel, and then also for air. So always do this no matter if it's needed or not. Right from the factory, they're also going to have a plate on the bottom. 9 times out of 10 they will. Take that off. That will be a huge headache once you carry it and put it on the silicone. It will cause issues where you're playing in the silicone with your hands. All your tools will be getting dirty and it's no fun. Take that off immediately. That will save you a headache. We kept the one nail in at the top so that while we're carrying it, it does not open and close on us. You leave one nail or one screw until you're in the final location. We're gonna set the bottom of the door in first and then tip it into place. But before we do that, I'm gonna take my nail out officially now that it is ready to go. Just like so. Now David is going to tip it into place. For this door particularly, we're not going for exactly perfectly level. Since it's a remodel, what we're doing is we're going off of the interior trim. For this case, we had to leave it because it's already plastered into the wall. So this trim is inset into the plaster. So we have to leave it to cause as minimal damage as possible. So we're going to make sure that our reveal all the way up the wall or up the trim and the jamb is the same. And that is what we're going to use for our boss, so to speak. This needs to go in a little bit. Just like so. Here's a trick that we love to use on all of our exterior doors. So when putting our screws, we always like to hide them behind the weather stripping. Now the painter is going to pull the weather stripping off and he's going to caulk all of these holes, but these screw holes are very big and a little bit more difficult and they're more noticeable. So we like to put them behind the weather stripping so that once he fills them, it's harder to notice, just like so. And then once he fills it, it'll be even harder to notice once it's behind the weather stripping. After my screws are put in, I'm gonna immediately put my foam all the way around, and that will seal all of the gap around the door and also help with it getting pressed in. I'm gonna start trimming out the outside now that all of my foam is put in. I'm gonna put this bottom piece back on that was original to the home. The very next thing that I'm going to do after that bottom piece is I'm going to apply a filler strip because our siding sticks out 3/4 of an inch past our jamb. So I'm going to do a jamb extension with a filler piece, and that will allow me to bring the jamb farther out, which will ultimately allow me to put my trim on it and fill this gap. Let's measure to see what we got for our filler strip. We'll do 80 3/4. Should be the same on this side. You never know. 80 3/4 work. This is how my filler strip is going to work. It's 3/4 of an inch thick, and I'm going to go about an 1/8 inch back with a little bit of reveal, and I'm going to nail it all the way down, making sure that it's roughly an 1/8 of an inch all the way down through. The reason I'm doing a little bit of a reveal is because that will allow the painter to have a spot to caulk versus it being flush and him having to Bondo it, or he might even use caulking if it was flush, but this creates a better spot for the caulking to go and makes it look a little bit more cleaner. After the jam extension, I can immediately go to the trim, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna put another reveal so that the painter can have a spot for the caulking to go. And I'm going to do 1/8 of an inch all the way up it, just like so. All of my nails, I'm gonna put them in the part of the siding where it has the most meat behind it, just like that. Put the other side on next. Now that all the trim's in, David's gonna start picking up to kind of help things get a little bit more tidier. And I'm going to install the latch. I'm gonna do the latch over here for the deadbolt and for the bottom part. And then I'm gonna program it to whatever number he wants for his lock. And I'm going to rekey it so that it matches the front door with the proper key. So he only has one key for both doors. So let's start with that and get that knocked out. The very first thing I'm gonna do when it comes to the door latch is I'm going to put the bottom latch on first so that I can open and close it properly, and that allows me to keep it shut while I do the deadbolt to make sure that everything dials in. I like to do this one first and then I go on to the deadbolt. Putting the bottom latch in first. And for anyone that hasn't installed a door latch before, this goes in first, and then your actual handle slides in around. Make sure you always put your screws on the inside so that no one can break in. Then you slide this in just like so. Then you go from the other side just like so. And then you'll want to make sure it's straight. Put your screws in. For this one, it's very simple. You'll take your screws, slide them in just like that. I like to get them started with my fingers first. Makes it a little bit easier. Make sure that they grab. Then I will get it close by adding a little bit of pressure with a drill. Get it snug like so. Get it snug. And then with it being snug, I can tweak it where I like it. I got that side set. Make sure the outside's good. Just like that. I personally like to make sure that it looks straight and plumb with my eye, because sometimes with remodeling, these doors are not perfectly level. And if you were to use a level on the side or anything like that, even a speed square would work. You can do it just like that. But I like to personally use my eyeball, because that's immediately what the homeowner is going to see. Is he's going to walk up and see it with his eye. And if he catches anything off with his eye, then he's going to look a little bit further. So that's what I like to do, and that is what has been really good for me as I've been putting these in. Now that I got it where I want it, I'll tighten it even more. Not too tight, because then it won't want to open and close. It'll be too stiff on the inside. That's perfect. Now I can go and add my latch plate. A lot of people don't know with these latch plates, they have a little cutout, the newer ones do, have a little cutout for a flathead screwdriver to fit in there and to pry it open. Once you screw it in, you can pry that little tab and it will open up, which will also make the door sit tighter against your weather stripping. If you have a door that has a gap around it, you can take that little tab, open it, and it will cause the door to be tighter up against the weather stripping like so, and that will help with air and light not coming through. It opens and closes properly, just like that. This is how that little tab works. Slide your flathead in, bend it a little bit, and it helps with the door shutting more tight, like so. Now I'm going to install this smart lock. That's the next one that I'm going to do. It is a deadbolt for the top of the door. Okay, on these deadbolts, they have an indicator that show which way to put them. It says for this side to go up. I got the deadbolt ready to go. Got my deadbolt put in, and now I'm sliding in the keypad, just like so. It's got a plate back here on the back. Take the screws. Get it snug, and then adjust it to where I like it. Just like that. Now I just gotta connect the little wiring harness. to the back, like so. Slide it, make sure that stays out of the way. Insert it properly. Nice. Drop those in. Slide that over the top. Perfect. The door is all complete. We have our trim on, our foam in, all the latches on. Everything is tight up against the weather stripping, and this is the final outlook of the door. The only thing that needs to happen after us is it needs to get painted, but it is ready for paint. It's ready for the next person to come in and to finish the job. And they'll probably end up taking these latches off when they go to paint the door, but for security purposes, you always put them on so the homeowner can lock the door at night. That's a wrap for this video. Thanks for tuning in with me while I installed this door here behind me. Until the next one, keep on building.